Check, check, check. Ta-da. Better. Down and back. Anyone growing peonies right? And spring gardens. Are we on? Are we countdowning or we're actually on? Ooh, all right. Hey, so we are here. Hey, welcome to Waters Garden Center. We're so glad that you are tuned into the How to Grow Peony class here at Waters Garden Center. So let me come back to you. I'll let you all kind of gather up. I know it takes a while to get enough volume there online. Going back to the tomato question, demarcation line is Mother's Day. And so non-gardeners, they actually will go, oh, I can't plant anything until after Mother's Day. Well, that's true if all you do is one tomato plant, that's it. But there's all this spring stuff you can plant. So all the leafy stuff, lettuce, tomato, lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, all these things you plant now. In fact, you plant on March 1. Not now, earlier. And so tomatoes, I put a few in. So I'm doing radio shows. I've got garden columns. I have to get on the radio and go, I just picked my first tomato. It was so delicious, it melts in your mouth, so I can brag about it. And so I'll put, they've got plant protectors that you can put over them. There's quite a few greenhouses in the area. And then Waters Garden Center is a destination garden center. So we're having people come in from Kingman when they're coming to the VA. The Verde Valley, Sedona, Camp Verde, they're coming over for Costco and Trader Joe's. So as they're here, they're stopping by. So we literally cater from Seligman all the way down to Dewey Humboldt, all the way over to the other side of the mountain. Smoking like a true Prescottonian. Yeah, so far. Oh my gosh. When gas price is $5 a gallon, it is kind of far, but yeah. Okay, so peonies, let's cover that. So my name is Ken Lane. I am the owner of the garden center. Pardon me if I kind of sip on a soda. I've been unloading semis all day. My feet are a little tired. I'm trying to get my brain going. So I have actually grown a lot of different peonies all over the county. And I'll share some secrets on how to do that. So, and then I've got some companion plants that go with peonies because this is a perennial. Actually, peonies are one of the longest living perennials you could possibly put in the ground. And they really don't need to be divided. You plant them, you pretty much leave them alone for 20 years and they will come back year after year after year. Very easy to grow. They almost don't like to be divided. Some folks will divide them and try to have two instead of one, but that stresses them out some. Sometimes they'll stop blooming. That next year when you do that, they'd much prefer to be left alone. So peonies have a very fleshy root, kind of like a potato. They've got a real mushy, fleshy, they hold a lot of moisture in their root zone, which makes them extremely drought hardy. Hey, Michelle, that music is kind of bugging me, but I kind of like it. Any dancers in the house? Yeah, I can see the guys in the back. You're dancers, aren't you? Go for it. Anyway, okay. I'm a disco guy. I still miss disco, but I'm almost embarrassed to say that. But are you allowed to say that anymore? I don't know. Go Bee Gees. So anyway, so they got this fleshy root to them, What you'll have trouble with when you plant peonies in your yard with this heavy clay soil, and it's the alkaline water with the heavy clay soil, you'll tend to have the plants rot. They'll just sit there in that ground and they'll just suffer and they'll slowly rot in the ground. And that's how I've killed mine in the past, is I just had it, I thought I amended it, I thought I had a soil that was draining, and it just wasn't. And so I'd put that drip system on it, I'd treat it like a tree or a shrub, like once a week, twice a week watering, it's plenty. And it would just slowly, that water would just never quite breathe, and so the root would rot. My best success, I've got a beautiful Ito peony. This is you graft a English peony onto a tree peony, and you get this English peony on steroids. It grows like this big, it's huge, gets flowers like this, twice as big as an English peony, and then they're more fragrant, and you get the exotic colors, yellows. You just don't see that. You can get that with the Itos, and I don't know if I brought one. This is an Ito peony. It's not in bloom. Mine literally looks like this at my house. Maybe it's a little bit taller, but it's about that. It's in the south side. You can see the buds. You see that bud just starting to form? That bud will be this big. It's twice as big as a regular English peony. So English will get about 2-3 feet, something like that. Nice ball-shaped, mounding kind of peony. This one will be 3 times that, just bigger. So they're kind of exotic, it's an exotic kind of peony. When you're planting peonies too, we plant these kind of like we do roses. We don't just do one. A lot of folks will do one, it's a specimen out there. I want to put this down because it's kind of heavy. So put there. I'll carry the small one. It's easier. They'll plant these, but really they're better when they're grouped together. Or not all the same. Different ones. You're collecting them like roses, different colors in the gardens. And what will happen is they will come and bloom at different times. And so now you've got peonies blooming over the next 3 months instead of just 5 weeks, that one plant. Now you get this rotation. That's a good way to think through peonies. Peonies don't bloom all at once. They bloom at different times and in different colors. I personally, this is one gardener to another. I find that the lighter color and the double flowers are more fragrant. My nose. Now remember, I'm a man. Details aren't my thing. Okay, I'm not like some of you gals. You can describe the colors way more detail than I can. I was only given 7 crayons in my box, but I find that you can just definitely smell them really, really well. The double flowers, the Ito peonies, they have very much a peony smell that's very distinct. I think partly it's just the flower is so big that it has more fragrance. I think that's just part of it. They'll bloom for about a month and a half, and then they're just a really pretty. The foliage themselves is pretty. With the flower is almost a bonus. The foliage is just really pretty. And so this will bloom usually in the spring, and then it's just this pretty, nice perennial. Then in the winter, they'll die back. You can't even tell where they're at. Literally, this will just be a dirt bucket with a root inside, and it'll just rest. They're underground, and then starting in March, sometime they start to send up their eyes. And I brought a sample of what the eyes look like in case you haven't grown a peony. This is sort of what they look like in the winter. You can see these eyes. This one's just starting to break the ground. And once it starts doing that, can you see that, Ken? You're zooming in. I'm trying to help you. Or not. Those poor people online. You should be here. We like our VIP customers, virtual, in person, but we know we'll see you later. Anyway, it's funny how COVID's over. Because a year ago, we would have this many people online and 10 people in the chairs. Now it's this people here and there's 10 people online. It's inverted. It's really different how it's changed, but it just means we're feeling more comfortable. So this is what they start to look like. When they start doing this, this will literally grow. You can almost watch it by the day. It will extend and grows very, very quickly. So, but really watch the hole that you're putting this in. I tell folks, dig the hole just as deep as this bucket, but go wide. That way you're able to, the roots are going to go sideways. They're not going to go down. It's just more caliche, clay, rocks, debris down there. They don't go after that. They're going where the moisture and the nutrients are in your garden soil. These do like regular garden soil, an enriched, composted, rich draining soil. That's where they're going to perform. So like all your other flower beds, this is going to do well in a flower bed. Okay. This is a regular English peony. And this is, what's the name on this? This is a red Sarah Bernhardt. It's got a real pretty red flower, double red flower to it. They come in pinks and yellows and whites and every color in between. So people collect these. Even some folks will pass them down. They live so long, they dig them up and take them with, or they give them to kids, or they just they live a long, long time. Yep. Yep, pots are good.
In the winter, can I take it out of the pot and put it back on the roof so I don't have this with nothing?
Okay, so what she's doing is, so I grow several peonies in containers, big glazed, pretty pots. I love it that way. I grow tall because that way the flower is up there where I can enjoy it and smell it. It's just there for me to enjoy better and interact with. So her question was, it's going to be ugly in the winter. It's going to be dirt. What do I do? What I do is I just put some pansies around the outer edge, and it just turns into a pansy container. And then they start to eat. Right now, they're coming up through the violas and pansies, and it's a way to have your cake and eat it too. Let's face it, we're Americans. We want 40 cents. We want to supersize it and want color year round. You can do that. It's very, very possible. So it's another peony. This is what it looks like. You can see the different foliage. They have some different foliage types. So they've got a lot of character to them. This one is called, I have no idea how to pronounce it. Cynthia, I guess, or something like that. It's a pink, double pink flower. You can take a look at it. Starting to have buds. You folks online, sorry, there's emergency response going by. So you can see the buds starting to show up, here. So anyway, if in doubt, you poor folks.
Is that a double or?
That's a double. Yeah, this is a.
I mean, the one you just got.
Yeah, that's a double red. It'll be about that big. You poor folks in Prescott Valley, you got that heavy clay soil. That's not going to be your friend. So there, what I recommend is raised beds, abandon the soil that's out there because it's nothing but crummy clay soil. That's where a raised bed or a container could really help you. But if you do decide to put it in the ground, which is very possible, I would say dig that hole the same depth and wider, and then test the hole. Fill it with water in the morning, and if you still have moisture sitting there in the afternoon, you have a problem. You dug a bathtub. You don't have, and a peony is just going to rot in there. I mean, it'll be a slow death. It'll be like over 2 years. It'll just deteriorate, and it's very painful to watch. As a gardener, it just hurts you. So if you see that, just dig it deeper, dig it wide. Or what I'll say is leave a portion of the root out of the ground and slightly mound the dirt up around it so that we guarantee, even in the wettest monsoon pattern, you get at least this much of the roots that will breathe. And so that'll really cut your mortality rate. That's not just on these, that could be on a lot of different things. So companion plants. I find that, let's not go companions, just let's go with the whole, how to plant it, how to fertilize it. Oh, lighting, good. And then and let's cover lighting too. That's good. Okay, so 6 hours plus. You need some sun for peonies for them to form the flower. If you're going it in shade, you won't get the flowers, or if they do, they'll be smaller, or they can be rather tall, and they'll want to lean. They'll want to lean into the sun. You give them at least 6 hours, they're full and bushy. The other one to watch, you folks on those ridge lines where the wind is, peonies can get quite large. You might have to stake them if it's a real windy area. And you treat them just like tomatoes. A tomato cage could actually work really well, or a stake, something just to keep them from falling over. So that wind gust, 30, 40 miles an hour up on the ridge lines, that's pretty common. That's, yeah, enjoy the sunset. And the wind, that's peony might need to be staked there. My house, I'm down in Eagle Ridge, overlooking the Watson Lake. There I'm down just low enough. I don't have to stake mine. I've never done it. It's fine, and they don't fall over on me. But you'll hear about peony stakes, which is basically a big tomato cage. I just sink over it, and they make it go that way. So just think in those terms. I say try it without it first, but just realize if it's really windy, you might have to put a stake on it. Okay. So drainage, sun, staking. You're good. You're ready to go. You're released. Go and buy peonies. Now, also, this is another one too. Peony is a spring crop. We will run out, and there's no crop behind it. Once the units are going, it's not like you hit a button and more printed out the other side. No, these are a peony. This guy here is probably 5 to 7 years old. It's been at the farm for 5 to 7 years. The English peonies are 2 to 3 to 4 years, depending on the variety and which farm. These are they have to be a minimum of 2 years old to even start to bloom. And really they got to be 3 to 4 year old roots before they're starting to do what you come into Waters Garden Center for. I want peonies this year. I want them to be full of color, like now. I don't want to wait 3 years. So that's why you want to kind of prepare. Think it's best to buy them early. Well, you got a selection. So, and they usually start coming in February. Well, did you? That's pretty common. Nope, they're bulletproof. You've got drainage and a good rich soil. Fertilize them with this all-purpose plant food. Greatest food for flowering things. It's cottonseed meal as a main ingredient. You rosarians know you give roses cottonseed meal before you enter them in the fair because it makes the color come out, makes the size, the fragrance come out. This is great for peonies as well. Anything that blooms, I'll sprinkle this on my containers. I'll sprinkle it on the ground, on the top of the pot. Every time you water, a little bit is released. It's an organic food. So for the next 3 months, every time water hits that, it'll release a little bit of food over a very long period of time. That's what gets peonies their size. They're very heavy feeders. If you just put them in the ground and never feed them, within 3 years, they're just going to be green shrubs and no flowers. Lilacs are the same way. You just put them in the ground, never fertilize them. They turn into green and they stop blooming within 3 to 4 years. They just won't bloom. This stuff put on, I would say if you're doing this, I would do it at Easter, spring. I'd do it the 4th of July because that's when the monsoons come. You're usually getting rain. Sometime in July, that rain pattern starts to happen. If you can put some food on right before that happens, you'll get a much richer, greener, thicker, won't bloom again, but you get a much larger root mass. You're setting the stage for next spring's root growth. And the most important feeding for anything that blooms in spring, the most, Halloween. That fall feeding is the game. That's what it's going to take that food, store it in the roots, and that's what it's going to use to push next spring's flower. So 3 times a year for peonies, Easter, 4th of July, Halloween. It'll be a game changer. I mean, you'll be the envy of your neighborhood. Gardeners will come over and go, how do you do that? Well, this guy, Scoopball over at Waters, he told me we'll fertilize 3 times a year with this fancy guru's fertilizer. That's it. For my containers, I'm a little bit different for container gardens. That's mainly in the ground kind of stuff. I do sprinkle some on my pots, but really the way I get the most color out of my container gardens, and I've got over 50 of them, I use Flower Power, which is a water soluble. It's got a scoop in there, and you put 1 scoop per gallon of water. And I'll just water my containers a couple times a month. I just give them that, and they just over the top. Geraniums that are nonstop bloom, petunias that just trail and have flowers, peonies that have ginormous buds. So this is kind of a water soluble. For the love of gardening, please do not use Miracle-Gro on your flowering peonies and stuff. It will kill them. It's a salt-based fertilizer that does nothing but react with our water, and it doesn't do what the advertising says. It will not grow tomatoes the size of your head. That's all just marketing PR stuff. It doesn't do that. It actually does more damage than good. So we've stopped selling that product here just because it just was doing more damage to my plants. These are my babies. I've been growing this for years. I want you to succeed too. Don't destroy them. So this is not a salt-based fertilizer. It's got copper, magnesium, but it's 48% phosphorus. Remember, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. It's got 48%. It's as high as we could go. That's the middle number. What causes flowers. You want roots and blooms. You want bigger tomatoes. The middle number is what you give it. That's as high as we can go and still keep it water soluble. After that, it starts to coagulate, settle kind of stuff. But flower power, it makes better flowers. Yes, I do actually use it with my container peonies. So why don't you use it in the ground? You could use it in the ground, but it's water soluble, so it doesn't stay there long. It goes through the soil pretty quick. I find for ground stuff, this feeds for 3 months. This feeds for 2 weeks. That's probably better for fruit trees and roses and things that are heavy feeders. Flowers can be good in the ground. Yeah, I actually use both. Here's the whole secret. So we like to entertain. We've got a backyard that's like over the top. Like you go, whoa, this guy might own a garden center, and he does. And so you come in, so you want the gardens to look, you're having a barbecue, 4th of July, it needs to be, the garden center will come over, they bring all their spouses, significant other, you want it to look good. I prune back all my flowers 2 weeks before the event, and I feed them flower power, whether it's in the ground or in a container. And within 2 weeks, the thing is over, just covered with flowers. People walk in and go, ooh, just trim them back 2 weeks before, feed them this. They'll be awestruck, okay? I did watering. You're probably gonna deep soak them like you would a tree or a rose or a lilac about once a week. It's probably pretty good. The great thing about peonies, they're very talkative. As soon as they get dry, they start going, they start to flop over. I'm just so hot. Okay, that's your cue, water them. I wouldn't give them water till you really want them to dry out in between water cycles. The secret is deep and then infrequent. That'll be for a healthier, better peony. If you don't do that, you could, if you're watering every day, some of you, your hobby is not gardening, it's watering. Peony may not be your plant. You might want something else. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what the book says, in fact, I'm going to send you How to Grow Peony. There's 2 handouts I'm going to send you. I wrote an article on how to grow peony. It's a 2-page document. Here's how you grow it. All the stuff we just covered in detail form. How to grow it. And then there's a companion, How to Grow Lily of the Valley. I've got those 2 things I want to send you because they're kind of companions. One's for sun, one's for shade, but they're grown similarly. And acidity is covered with that. But it's only via email. It's a digital. It'll be an HTML website. It's just how to grow it. It's from our website. I'll send it to you here probably by tomorrow. It'll be there. So if you missed a note, you'll have all my notes in your inbox shortly. Okay, just put that down. pH though, when you read the book, it says between 6 and 7 is the perfect pH for a peony. You'll never get there in your own gardens. You're lucky to get it down to 7.5, 8. I find because our water is so alkaline. Your water, every time you turn the irrigation on, whether it's a well or the city, which is both well water, you're instantly giving it 7.5 to 8 pH water. So there are some fertilizers. This is an acidic-based fertilizer. It's got sulfur in it. Cottonseed meal is acidic. And so this will lower the pH somewhat. I find peony bloom really well. You get it down below 8, it seems to work. So the book says below 7. If you're really into measuring stuff, I find if you've got a rich organic flower bed and you're using the all-purpose food, it's good enough. It'll react. And with that being said, so I farmed for many years out in Chino Valley. This is ag. This is big. This is 150-foot greenhouses. I mean, thousands of feet. And the well we had, oh, I don't know how I did this. So 9.2 to 9.3 was the pH coming out of the water. That's pretty much, you might as well throw ammonia on there. It killed everything. And so we had fancy injectors to bring that, to make it all, to correct the water. Otherwise, things like yellow petunias turn yellow instantly. You can't get them green. And so we found ways to trick the plants into using that water. But if you're on a well, you get into some areas, it can be really high pH. If things are yellowing on you, they aren't blooming well, it could be the pH crept too high and they stopped blooming. When the pH goes too high, they'll shed their flowers, they'll shed their fruit. So like your tomatoes, they're starting to form and they just go, I'm going to yellow and drop off. Zucchinis, they'll just yellow and drop off. Those are all indications of my pH crept up too high. So you'll come in for iron and I'll sell it to you. But probably what we need to do is lower the pH, and the iron that's already in the soil will be released. What happens if the pH goes too high, it locks all those minerals up. It's there, but the plant can't get to it because it's too stressed out. And so sulfur, you'll use this right here. I just already told you, use this. We know you're going to have problems with pH. It's going to be too high. We know you have alkaline water. We know you have alkaline gardens. So we made the fertilizer to help you compensate that. So that's why we use cottonseed meal. It's an acidic ingredient that brings out flowers. We add sulfur to that fertilizer to automatically bring the pH down. So that's why it works so well. If you ever used it, you know, oh, there's a following on it because it just works. Let me show you some companions for peonies. Then I'll show you Lily of the Valley, which is very similar size. Okay, very similar size, but more shaded areas. So you got both. If you're the north side, Lily Valley, south side, peonies. Do either one. In the back. Porcupine lady. You're the porcupine lady. She brought a sample of porcupine, classic porcupine. Yeah, I'm surprised. Everyone always says, well, we don't have porcupine. I'm going, okay. Yes, you do. They're everywhere. But go ahead. Oh, whether they eat things. Oh, they don't eat peonies. They don't eat them. I've got personal experience with elk and deer and javelina. They don't eat them. So I can just tell you. Now, I never use javelina proof, but highly resistive. It's pretty much, you can almost go to Vegas on it. They're not going to eat them. Okay. Same with this one. This is candy tuft. This is a native wildflower. It's actually one of the few evergreen perennials. It gets this nice mounding little plant, and it just blooms for like 3 months in spring, solid white. And so it's just a great little true native perennial wildflower. Does really well. And it's a companion to this. Peonies are typically quite large. You want to put those towards the back side of your gardens as you're viewing them, because they're going to get this big. And then you put these kind of things towards the front side. So you almost look like it's almost a backdrop to the other flowers like this. Full sun. Animals don't eat this. Okay. Candy tuft. Yeah. Sure. So it's, yeah, sure. So she's got some peonies she planted last year. They were youngsters, and they're on the northeast side of her house. Is there enough light for them? You'll know shortly. So they either bloom or they won't. So they either lean to no, they won't. I always go during the growing season, which is April through October. If you've got 6 hours of sun in that garden bed, it'll bloom. If you have less than that, dig them up, move them, because they're not going to perform like you want them to. So probably a little bit further out from the house so it gets a little bit more sunlight. So mine is in a pot on the south side next to a patio against the house. It doesn't get any hotter than that. Does fabulous. Does absolutely incredible. If you're going to have problems with peonies, it's they don't get enough sun, or they're in soil that's too thick, doesn't drain. So this is the same way. This is Rainbow Ascot Euphorbia. It's my newest favorite perennial. It looks innocent. This will actually get up about this tall, perfectly vase-shaped like this. It's got the funkiest little flower. Mine is starting to flower now at home. It's an evergreen. It just looks like this, winter, summer, fall, all the time. It's beautiful. But the flowers on it are the exact same color as the foliage. But you go, is it blooming? What's going on? Hey, it's the same color. It's really neat. This is related to poinsettias of all things. Poinsettia is a euphorbia. So when you break the stems, you'll see this milky white sap come out of it, just like a poinsettia, only this one goes down to 0 degrees. It is super tough. It'll go through any winter we have. It'll take on the coldest cold and be evergreen. It's a great little plant. Full sun, I'd say at least 6 hours. Rainbow Ascot Euphorbia. Okay, so knee high or so, something like that. I grow them in the ground. I grow them in pots. I grow them because they're just so easy to grow. It's just full sun. It's kind of like a succulent or yucca. You treat it like that. Just neglect it, kick dirt at it, take a blow dryer to it, curse at it. It'll keep on growing. It's a great little plant. Companion with these guys. This is another one. This is Gaura, G-A-U-R-A, Gaura. Gets up about this tall. The foliage gets this tall, but the flower stalks hover above the foliage, and they just kind of move in the wind. Hummingbirds love this plant. It's just guaranteed full sun. So this will be maybe 18 inches. So if I were designing this, I would go the peony, this, then this, and you get your tier, your birthday cake kind of tier to the garden. So if you're thinking in those terms, then they all play off each other. White brings out the color of the pinks, and now this is going to be a red, so it brings out those different colors of the different plants. All full sun. Oh, these are all perennials. So the way the garden center's laid out, she said, is this up here or down there? That house down there, that glass house, those are all perennials that come back every year. This up here, this is annuals, vegetables, and herbs up here. So these don't come back. Herbs come back, but really this is more annual, that's more perennial, okay? This will be down there. This is a perennial yarrow, R-Y-O, I'm tired, Y-A-R-R-O-W, yarrow. So it's a native plant. We also have some non-natives. We've got yellow, paprika, kind of an apple blossom. It's such a tough little plant that it just spreads. So this will turn into this grouping, turn into this round, spreading plant. I just took mine and I butchered it. So I've got some big beds of this. I just trimmed it back to the ground as low as I could. Then I fertilized it with the all-purpose food. It's already starting to grow back. I don't want that old, mangled, overgrown, leftover foliage from last year. I want fresh, new, vibrant, kiss the sun, kind of glorious color. That's what I want. And so I just cut it back, fertilize it, it comes right back like that. True native plant. Again, animals don't bother like the whites and the yellows. The deer seem to go after the paprikas and kind of the reds. So if you're in that wildland interface, you probably want to buy one as a test victim, plant it, see how it does, and you'll know by that night. Oh, they left it alone. Then you go all in. It seems like the yellows, the more native colors, they don't bother. Okay. This one they don't bother either, and then we'll go to more shaded stuff. This is creeping phlox. Comes in different colors of pink, basically. Again, bright sun. This is a ground cover. This is as tall as it gets, and it spreads like this. And it's just guaranteed every spring you're going to have this perennial that just is covered in pink flowers for 2 months. Just be glorious. So again, companion plants, these all go together well in a garden. They look good together. Let's go to Lily of the Valley, which is the opposite of peony, more shaded areas. So if your peonies don't work out, go with this one. So I've got two here. That's Lily of the Valley. These are the flowers. It blooms all spring. very fragrant. It's surprisingly fragrant for a shade plant. And so it's loaded with these buds all winter. It's like a tease. It's going, is it in bloom? When's it going to bloom? And then usually in March, April, May, it just opens up and starts blooming. And then the new growth will happen after this. This is bright red new growth that comes up. It's very, very, very pretty, just the new foliage. And then it turns green like this through winter. It's truly an evergreen perennial flower that grows in the shade. It's very bright. Most shade gardens are so dark. It's hard to get plants to show up in those darker shaded areas. This one almost shines. So this is fully mature. This is how tall it gets. It'll get kind of bushier. And then I would just give it a haircut after it's done blooming. I'll kind of shape it. It doesn't take any real maintenance, really. No more than 6 hours of sun. It needs more shade, especially in June when it's 95, 10% humidity. We're 3 weeks before the rains come, and there's a prevailing southwest wind. That's hard on plants. This guy's not going to like to be in full sun, that 10 to 2 time frame. It'll like the morning sun, that end of the day sun. It does fabulous. Another one that goes with this gets a little bit bigger. Get my gloves out of the way. It would grow really well in pots. Oh yeah, that's one too. Raise it up where you can really enjoy it. It just brings it where you get to interact with it. Guests will come into your front door and go, the Amazon delivery guy is going to go, whoa, I love delivering to their house. More boxes to their house. This is a companion. This is a camellia. This is for you California folks. This is the only hardy variety of blooming camellia that will grow here. So this is an evergreen shrub. This is how it looks. It's just starting to leaf out. You're starting to see some leaf buds break. This is how it looks in the winter. It's been in bloom for 2 months. So February, March, first part of April, it blooms. It's got a flower about this big, a little bit smaller than your tropical type of camellias, but you can easily get it up to about hip high or so. It doesn't get quite as big as your traditional big camellia. Yeah, the Greek, I used to be yeah. This one will go down to minus 20 degrees. It's the only one that'll do that. Most camellias will go, they won't even go to 30. They just die off. This one's truly, truly hardy. Okay, so I think this is Ice Princess, a series of camellias. But these two are companion plants to each other. Some other ones that I like, this is another one that you may not be familiar with. Azaleas and rhododendrons do surprisingly well here. For you folks in the Midwest, you're used to growing them right out there in the full sun. Not here. At this elevation, it gets too much for them. So this is what I would say, more shaded, either full shade, but no more than 6 hours of sun. And it will thrive. It will do this every spring for you. Very easy to maintain. These guys too, they like more acidic kind of soil. So that's one where you want to use the more acidic fertilizers. It's gonna change that so that it blooms and sets flowers better. Brings out the color of the flower. This is I think this is a rhododendron. No, this is an azalea, Karen azalea. So I thought it was a PJM rhododendron. There's a miniature, there's a dwarfed rhododendron. The traditional rhodies will grow here, the big boys. You'll see them out in the forest in between the pine trees. They thrive there. And then animals, deer don't bother this. Javelina don't eat them. So they're kind of bulletproof that way. They do come in different colors, from white to pink to red to purple. But they're like roses, lots of colors. Main thing is get them in the right spot. It's the main lesson for that. This is another one. This is more flexible. There's a native wild columbine that grows here. Mainly up in Flagstaff, White Mountains, kind of that 6,000 foot level and above, but it's yellow. And yellow's fun, but that's prettier, less boring than yellow. So just plain yellow, straight yellow. We've got the native one down there. If you're truly native, xeriscape, we have that. But you could also have this. So it's columbine is really a champion here in our gardens. I would treat this like I would a peony, drainage. If you're going to kill it, it'd be from overwatering. It's pretty drought hardy. It's got a deep tap root to it, but it just does this. In the winter, it does rest underground, so it'll kind of disappear. It will come up fresh again. Fertilize it, it'll just go into bloom like this. Very long bloom cycle. Secret with this, when it's done blooming, if you can pinch that off, it'll set another flower for you. This is one that does really well with pinching or deadheading the flowers. Just keep rotating flowers. Notice butterflies, I find like this too. Okay. Columbine, yep. I like these. I brought two of them. They're both the same thing. These are, your grandparents called these coral bells. They get a little flower, kind of hooks, a little white flower that hooks up. It's really insignificant. What you're planting this for is the foliage. Really, this is why you have it. The flowers are kind of, yeah, so it blooms. The foliage is pretty, likes the shade. It's a perennial that mild winters, it will actually hold its foliage right through winter. And I find you've got from dark purples, which doesn't show up in the shade very well, but copper, lime green, the really bright colors. These come in a lot of different foliage colors. Very dry. I would treat this, many times I'll plant a tree, and I'll plant this where the drip emitter is going to water the tree, and I'll use this as an underplanting so my tree doesn't look like rock right next to the trunk. That is not natural, in case you're wondering. So to have it look like there's other things erupting from the earth and it looks fresh and new and vibrant, that's natural. And this is so tough, it will take the same water cycle as your tree, typically once a week. This will take that. And then as the tree grows and starts shading it, it does even better. So it just does really good. It'll take sun. It really thrives and looks good in the shade. So it's pretty versatile. Heuchera is what you see the magazines talk about. Anyway, it's changed the name from coral bells to heuchera. Sounds like you're hecking up a, like a fur ball. Heuchera. But heucheras, you'll see the name heuchera. That's the name on it, okay? Companions with all these guys. Two more. Isn't that pretty? Blue. It's one of the true blue. Not violet. I mean, true blue. Very unusual to have a color like that. It's a companion with these guys. This is fully mature, as tall as it gets. This is Graceward Lithodora. You have to look at the name tag, but there's no common name for it. It's just Latin. It's such an unusual plant. This is one you're only going to find at Waters Garden Center. Don't go over to Home Depot. Get over here and buy this over here. There you go. You heard me. So anyway, this is one of those specialty, almost to the rare point, perennial plant. It does thrive in more shaded parts of the garden. Okay. What's that? Bleeding Hearts is more of a shade plant. That will do. Yep. Yep, that would be perfect there. Yeah. Bleeding Hearts do really well here. And animals, I find, my nemesis in my gardens, javelina. They like to come raid. They invite friends. It's a party. Bring chips and salsa. It's at the Lane's house. So I put an electric fence naked through the gardens just so. And then I put some aluminum foil over the wire, and I put some peanut butter on the bottom side of the aluminum foil. They are attracted to it, and they get zipped. You get that lead boar in there, and they freak out. I mean, there's a wire all over the yard. It's all down, and as the whole herd went, whoa! You set it back up, and they don't come back. So pretty much that's the case. Sometimes they'll come down the driveway and graze on a few pots, but generally they leave me alone. This is digitalis, or foxglove. It's another name. Does well in the shade. It's a companion with all of these guys we were just mentioning. It's one of the few plants that will bloom like this. I love this by my front door. We all have that covered. Front door is kind of dark. This just shines so well. And it's a perennial. It just comes back year after year after year. The negative, if it's in a windy area, they get kind of tall. You might have to stake it. The wind might knock it over. You might have to stake it in more windy. I don't have as much wind where the house is positioned where the wind kind of stays out of my garden, so I don't have to stake as much. Tomatoes I do because they're this big. This doesn't get that big, so I don't seem to have to stake it as much. But foxglove, digitalis, all companion plants for here. And that's really all I had for you. When you're planting new plants, especially, peonies, these are expensive plants. These are old. Perennials. Really go after the whole, really plant it with care. Go do extra work to get that thing where it's treated like a tree or a rose or a shrub. Go after that extra work. I would say when you dig that hole out, all that native soil, if you're going to put it in the ground, amend that dirt so that you're not just putting that same raw native earth back around that. It's not going to be good for you. Amend that with, I don't know how long I can hold this up, but we make premium mulch. This is our mulch. We screen it down really tight, 3/4 inch minus. It's very fine compost. So you folks from the Midwest, you describe compost as bark that you put on top of the ground. It's not. This is actually organic, rich-looking, chocolate-looking, composted bark mulch. So that's what this is. It's made to amend the earth and keep it from compacting right back down, so the roots can go in the surrounding soil. Yes, but if you fail, I know where you can get another peony next year. So we're going to have enough to get through maybe April, and then we'll be out of peonies. I mean, I'll try to get more, try to find them, but just now you want to grab your peonies. You don't want to wait because they'll be gone. Not putting pressure on you. You've heard this. You got the last one. I've heard that so many times. But when you're doing it, blend the native soil with this about 50-50, maybe a third, one shovel of compost to 3 shovels of native earth. Be pretty generous with this. Blend it and then backfill around that root ball. Make sure the roots are at soil level or a little above. Do not plant in a divot. That's not going to be good for peonies. So that's the curse of Phoenix. Oh, plant it in a divot, it'll rain harvest. Well, when you get no rain a year, you could do that. In Phoenix, it's 100 degrees at midnight. Here we cool down, we get afternoon rains, it's more moisture. If peonies stay wet through the evening, you can get powdery mildew. There's some issues that happen. So I'd say best time to water peony or any flower garden, very early morning, like before 8, like before the heat of the day. Hydrate things before the heat hits at like 10, 11, 12, and they're going to go through that heat better. And they'll be dry by the time the evening comes. You don't want flowers to stay moist when it's dark because they won't dry out. You'll get leaf spot, leaf curl, powdery mildew. There's all kinds of stuff that happens. And I've got solutions for it. You have to buy it over the shelf, but why do that? Just don't water them in the morning, not in the evening. In Phoenix, they'll tell you water at night, not up here. See on the back. Hold on, just a minute. I'm going to go back here where I can hear him because I need to give him the microphone. Yeah, what's up? Good question. Good. Yeah, very good. So he came in this morning, just so you didn't hear that. So you folks online, we're not forgetting. We know you're there. Just hold on. We want to see you later this afternoon, okay? No, we're running out of time. Tomorrow, we want to see you Saturday. So anyway, he said he bought a couple peonies this morning. He's planting them, like we said. What fertilizer should we put on those to bring out the most? So I was getting to that. Hold on. So when you backfill around that, water it in really good. Then you want to add a handful of all-purpose plant food. Sprinkle that on top of around the root ball, and that's what will feed it. It's a light grade, very natural, mild fertilizer that will bring out the most root growth and more flowers because you're actually gonna have flowers this spring with peonies from Waters Garden Center. You're guaranteed to have flowers this year. So anyway, this will help bring out more of it. And then you're going to water it in when you're all done with Root and Grow. This is a compost tea that we make. We brew up our own tea, but you water this in. It looks like molasses. It looks like fish emulsion, but it doesn't stink like that. It smells earthier, not like rotten fish eggs. It smells, but this actually gets rid of transplant shock or reduces it, then encourages new root growth. And I would do this every couple of weeks until you see that plant has taken. It's healthy. It's growing. You go, oh, I'm successful. I'm such a good gardener. then you don't have to do this anymore. That's when the fertilizer's really doing all the work for you. Does that kind of get you going? Anything else? Yes, in the back. Flower power is good on roses, especially container roses. Yes. So for me, what I do for I grow a lot of roses, and I get off my natural thing a little bit. I do the rose food with systemic because the aphids and thrip are so bad. That first crop of buds, they're always taken or damaged. So I'm putting rose food with systemic on my roses right now. That's a granular. So you'll see it on the shelf. It says rose food. It's a food with a systemic bug repeller. I would do that. And I do that like every 6 weeks or so through spring. And then usually by summer, that second flush of buds, I don't have the bugs like I do. Early spring is so rough. That's what I would do one gardener to another is what I do. Something over here? Yeah. That's good. She uses coffee grounds, never has aphids. So use a coffee grounds. When you do have aphids, I'll get you her number. So. So her mother grew peonies in Michigan, and ants do like the taste of peonies. So they get into the bud and they start to open the bud. Peonies, that is a total myth. So they do that just so I don't have to spray for ants, and so I can tolerate the ants on my peonies. They'll open without ants. They'll open with ants. Ants like to get in there and eat the nectar inside. Peony do not need the help of ants to open up. If you get ants on my peonies, I'm going to use an ant bait to keep you off because I don't want to pick them. I love taking a big old Ito peony, and I have this beautiful cut glass bowl. We fill it with water. We just float the blossom there on the table. It's so beautiful. It smells so good. It's not good with ants. I don't want ants in my antique cut bowl. So anyway, so I don't know. I hear that story all the time. Your research stuff. I don't have ants, and mine open up just fine. So yeah, good. There are some aphids can get on peonies. You do see insects. There's a few things that get on it. Mainly it's powdery mildew, I notice. As they get too wet at the wrong time. There can be some ants. Some aphids are the main thing in the spring. If I see that, I think I brought it. I use triple action. This is a good, all natural, organic, safe. I mean, use some common sense. Don't put it in your cereal bowl or something, but you can spray after they have harvest, unlike my kale. I had aphids all over my kale 2 days ago. I spritz it with this. Aphids on peony can get on there. This will take them right out. Also, neem oils is the main ingredient, NEEM. Organic gardeners, that's a great organic. Neem oil actually will coat powdery mildew, and if you catch it early, it can eliminate or reduce the damage of powdery mildew. So this kills the minor, smaller bugs, and it takes out some of your milder, kinder leaf disease. So this is basically neem oil. So I get powdery mildew. I grow giant pumpkins. I love growing. You want to impress grandkids? Grow a pumpkin that's this big. They will be awestruck. And so I come over, but I always get powdery mildew on them. And so I just know as a preventative in August, I start spritzing this every couple of weeks, and it keeps the powdery mildew off of my roses or pumpkins or whatever your issue. This is always my first line defense because it's inexpensive, it's safe, it's not going to kill off hummingbirds, it's safer for dogs. If something happens to the dogs, it's over for me. So I got to be really careful. It does not work on big insects. Well, I guess grasshoppers, we did this, but if you just spray them, it's not going to work. There you go on to bigger stuff. Spray it right on flowers, edibles. I always start with this. White flies, I always start with this. And then I'll go to Sayonara, which is basically as safe as you can get without, and not going Oregon. Yes, another chemical down there, another spray called Sayonara. If you hit it, it will quiver, take his last breath, and die. So that's hardcore though, and I'd rather not do that. I'd rather go milder whenever I can. That's just me. Okay. What else? If you see something, bring it up. We've got a microscope. We'll put it underneath. We can show you. I mean, aphids up close, they're freakish. Yeah, 10 eyes, 20 like claws. They're freakish. So, and you're going to go, is it dangerous? Well, yeah, skillet. Triple action. Here you go. Want one? So what was something over here again? Gypsum. So the other myth about gypsum, this is the curse of Phoenix. If you read the bag, you put gypsum on top of rock, you can watch the rock start to melt. That is not true. It's not going to make heavy clay start to percolate. It does not do that. What gypsum really does, it's calcium sulfate. That's what it is. What it does, your bathtub is a good way to explain it. That ring that builds up in your bathtub or your sink, that also builds up in your soil. And so you can clog up heavy clay soils with minerals, that white stuff. You can clog it up. What gypsum does, it helps to flush that out. So it opens the pores back up when you've already clogged it. So if you're gardening, I use gypsum mainly for the calcium underneath my tomato plants. I'll put some under because it's an inexpensive way to get calcium to my tomatoes, which blossom end rot. Remember where the blossom on a tomato starts to get this black spot? That's a classic calcium deficiency. So that's a real easy way to use calcium. But I don't think you need calcium in your yard, but I sell it if you want it. So I never use it in my own yard. I just don't think I think if you amend the soil correctly, your soil is going to drain, things are going to root, they're going to take better. You won't need gypsum. Anyway, that's my opinion. There you go. I'm glad when a woman asks my opinion. Thank you very much. I don't get that at home. Anything else? Last chance. And I'll hang out. If we didn't get your question, or come take a look. I got a lot more peonies down here. I think it's the second table closest to the parking lot. You'll see them. They all look like this, basically. So yeah. So if you buy a peony today, you could plant it right today. You could keep it in the pot, just water it every other day or so till you're ready. So yeah, you can plant it right now. If it snows, it'll be perfectly fine. These guys, I've got mine up. They're this tall already. If there's frost or snow or anything, there's going to be one last event. We're going to see one before Mother's Day. There's going to be one more thing. It's not on the radar right now, but there will be one. I'm not going to cover my peonies. They'll be fine, and they'll still bloom. Yeah. Good question though, right? Appreciate it. Thanks so much, folks. All right, you are released first. Before you go, I'll let you clap just because it makes me feel better about myself and others. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Again, I'll hang out. Look for an email coming your way with how to grow peony and how to grow Lily of the Valley here shortly. Yeah, I'll see if I can get it tonight, although probably not. Yeah.
Will that do okay with very little sun?
Yeah, no sun. Full shade.
Okay.
Hard shade.
Okay.
Like dense
Yeah, like
tree shade. Yes.
well, they're not coming up.
Oh, gotcha.
They haven't done well really for like 20 years.
Maybe it's time to dig them up.